Well, welcome to the Sky Notes for February 2021. This is a monthly review of what you can see in the night sky over the next few weeks. This is a whole map view of the sky, and we can see at a glance that mid-month, by about 9 o'clock in the evening, we're starting to see some of these spring constellations like Leo and so on around here. Very prominent in the evening sky, very easy to find Leo. We also have established, sort of in the south, Orion, which is easy to spot. Three belt stars in Orion, very easy one to pick out due south at about 9 o'clock. Into the west, we're actually starting to lose again some of the autumn constellations, like Pegasus here is setting there by late evening. And into the north, we have some of the constellations which are circumpolar still, which are even the top end of Cygnus and top end of Lyra, with Vega is actually circumpolar. You can see that the Plough asterism in Ursa Major is now rising into the northeast, becoming more prominent, and opposite the pole small star we have Cassiopeia. And we can see that the Milky Way is stretching from Cygnus in the northwest all the way overhead through Cassiopeia, Perseus, Auriga, Gemini, and down into past Orion and into Canis Major. Mars is still prominent in the south early evening. You can see it's just moving from Aries into Taurus during the February, and it's still quite bright. It's about first magnitude now, and it's presenting a very small disk, as we'll see later on. So in a bit more detail, we're looking into the south, familiar constellation of Orion, that's our signpost constellation. You can easily pick out Betelgeuse at the top left and Rigel at the bottom right, as we see it. Below the three belt stars, we have M42, the Orion Nebula. And if you want to see some star clusters due south, then we have below Orion, you have the constellation of Lepus, the Hare, and that contains M79. If you follow the star in Orion's belt downwards, you will come to the bright star Sirius, the brightest star in our sky. And below Sirius, you can pick up M41, which is another star cluster to have a go at. The Winter Triangle consists of three stars, with Betelgeuse in Orion, Procyon in Canis Minor, and Sirius in Canis Major. And this is an easy spot, so you can navigate your way around the sky by using the Winter Triangle. If you take a line of stars from a line through the stars of Rigel through Betelgeuse upwards, you can see constellation of Gemini, which is sort of rectangular in shape, with two bright stars on the left-hand side, which are Castor and Pollux. On the lower right-hand side, we have Castor's foot, effectively, and above that is M35, another star cluster to have a look at. I've included on here the ecliptic this month, which is actually showing you that Mars is traveling along the ecliptic. As Mars goes into its orbit, around its sun in its orbit, it's getting progressively further from Earth. As Earth's overtaken it on the inside, it's shrinking. But as a consequence of being in our evening sky, it lags behind effectively for quite a few months. So we see it in our evening sky for quite a long period of time. Some nice star clusters here. We have the Seven Sisters group in Taurus, the Pleiades M45, and the Hyades, the V shape of Taurus, which is an easy spot in the evening sky, dominated by the foreground star Aldebaran, the nice red giant star there. Above Taurus, we have Auriga with some nice clusters, M35, 36, 37, 38, and it's below the bright star Capella. So moving on into the west, we're losing some of the autumn constellations, as I said before. You can still use the square of Pegasus to find a way around the sky. If you want to see our Andromeda Galaxy, see it early evening before it gets too low in the west. And so we can see one reasonably bright galaxy in the western sky. And if you have dark sky conditions, you might like to try to find M33, which is also a quite large object, but it's low surface brightness, and you would need binoculars certainly to pick it up from a darker sky. Okay, we also have in Andromeda a planetary nebula, the Snowball Nebula, which is a favorite of some of our members. NGC 7662 is its number. It's sort of a bluish color oval telescopic planetary nebula there. So moving into the north, we have obviously the pole star is easily spotted by using the stars in Ursa Major's or the Plough asterism. 2 N stars, American Dubhe, follow those across 5 times the distance, and you'll come to the pole star. It's not particularly bright, but it's on its own effectively in that area of the sky. So it's an easy spot if you look at it north to align your equatorial mounts, for example. We can see that Vega is scraping the horizon into the north, and it has a declination from the UK, means that it actually never sets. It actually gets to within 1 degree of setting, but actually transits the northern aspect and then begins to rise in the northeast in the early morning. So looking to the east, this is where we're looking at things are coming up in the next few months. We're now seeing the first signs of spring constellations, so spring isn't far away. We have Leo the Lion, effectively, which is represented by this constellation here with the stars of the Sickle. And we have this is an asterism of stars looking like a reverse question mark. The bright star Regulus is an easy spot, and so is the bright star Denebola at the other end of Leo. It looks a bit like a sphinx if you look at it sideways, or indeed, in some respects, it looks like a mouse, effectively, with a tail and a snout at the other end pointing downwards. But however you recognize it, Leo is an easy one to spot. And if we begin the galaxy hunting season, then there are 2 sets of galaxies to have a go at, M95 and 96, and then the triplet, the Leo triplet, which is made up of M65, 66, and NGC 3628. These 3 hadron spiral galaxies in the same telescopic field. So the moon this month, new moon's on the 11th, first quarter is 19th, full moon on the 27th, and last quarter is on February the 4th. And this month, the full moon, according to the American Indian catalogue of names, is the snow moon, for obvious reasons, I guess. If you want to look at the moon illusion, then look at the full moon as it rises on the 27th and or around that date, and make sure you've got a foreground object in your line of sight, and enjoy the moon illusion effect. We have also an interesting star cluster, M44, Praesepe or Beehive, and you can find the Beehive by taking a line from Castor and Pollux towards Regulus, but about halfway along that line, you'll see a misty patch with naked eye. Look with binoculars, and you'll be amazed at the nice star cluster that you can see there with binoculars. So moving on, look at our featured constellations this month. We're looking a little bit down deep south, as it were, because it's easily spotted this time of the year, low in the southern aspect, Canis Major and Lepus Hare. And there are quite a few star clusters limiting magnitude 10 or above. So if you've got a telescope, have a look through that region and pick up some of these little fuzzy patches. You'll be amazed what you can see in that inside the Winter Triangle, for example. There's quite an array of deep sky objects to have a go at with a moderate sized telescope. This month we have an opposition of the bright asteroid minor planet number 4, Vesta. It actually reaches opposition late February into early March, and it's positioned at the back end of Leo, as it were, and you can see there the movement over a period of time, night to night movement in Leo. And of course there is a newsletter which deals with more detailed observations of this, newsletter 281. There's a second asteroid this month, which actually is visible. It's a bit more difficult to pick up. Amphitrite is the name. It's asteroid which you can see telescopically, and that's dealt with in newsletter 283. So we have one comet worth mentioning, but it is extremely faint. It's not the easiest thing in the world to have a look at. So of the 5 comets that are visible in the evening sky at the moment, 3 of them are really beyond, I would say, amateur range at 12th magnitude. Comet 141P Machholz is holding steady in the constellation of Cetus at 10.5 magnitude, and that has a revised newsletter 277A. Comet 156P Russell Linear is a little bit fainter, and it is fading. It's in the constellation of Triangulum, and that's dealt with also with an updated newsletter 270A. The planets this month, we have quite a few which are actually in the daytime sky. Mercury, it reaches inferior conjunction on the 8th, so it's not visible, but emerges back into the dawn twilight by mid-month. Venus is really in our daytime sky now, so we've lost Venus for observation at the moment. It's very difficult to see it in the dawn sky. Mars is obviously visible in the evening sky, as we said before. Jupiter's now in our daytime sky in the early part of February, and emerges into early dawn skies by early March, really. It's getting really too close to sunrise to see it safely. Okay, this month. Saturn is in a similar position. It's also in our daytime sky. Most of the months it does a re-emerge into dawn twilight by the last week in the month, really. But it is quite faint to see that. Neptune is really now heading into the twilight zone, and becomes too close to see by mid-month, really. It's really out of the way, effectively. So that leaves Uranus, which is still visible in the constellation of Aries at the moment, and you can spot that quite easily with binoculars, as we'll see in a minute. So looking at constellation of Aries, what you do is you put your 10 by 50 binoculars with 2 stars, Alpha and Beta, Arietis, in the center of the field of view, and take 1.5 field of views below that to find an object which is brighter than any of the stars in that area. So the brightest object in that area will be the planet Uranus. You can see from this graphic that Mars is moving quite a lot this month into February. It's now heading towards Taurus. It actually crosses over into Taurus around about mid-month, or just after, and it's actually quite well placed below the star cluster M45 around the first week in March, which we'll find out next month how to look at that. So I've also included newsletter 282 this month, which is some lunar occultations. If you've not seen an occultation before, an occultation occurs when the moon covers over, effectively hides one of the star background stars as it moves across the sky. Obviously, the moon's movement is to the east progressively, and if you get a bright star like this one, eventually, at some point, it'll come behind the moon. It'll actually be hidden, and this is what we call an occultation, and you can see that happening there early evening. So have a look at that. make sure you look at it about 20 minutes beforehand to make sure you can pick up the star, and then appreciate how the moon is moving in its eastward direction by looking at the time of occultation. The star will suddenly disappear on the dark limb. Okay, so that's newsletter 282. There are a few lunar things to look at for lunar observers this month, the 23rd to the 25th of February. Obviously, we're just approaching the 50th anniversary of Apollo 14, and the landing area is adjacent to Mare Cognitium in the Frau Maro crater region. If you've got a moon map, you can find that one out and have a look at that with telescopes or whatever. Okay. We also have one of these clear obscure effects on the 23rd, in which the sunlight appears to illuminate one of the mountain tips adjacent to the crater Aristarchus. So have a look at that as well. The moon obviously rocks back and forth in its orbit as it goes around the Earth, so we get this libration effect. And so one of the things that we don't normally see is Mare Orientale, which is this huge impact basin just out of our view, effectively on the side of the moon. We can't see, but it's just glimpsed edge on effectively around about the evening of the 25th of February. And of course, you can find out more details on some of these effects by looking at the Sky at Night magazine, February 2021 edition, and using a Phillips moon map to find a way around. So, as in previous years, there is a CPRE star count this year, and this is to assist the survey of dark skies and light pollution. So if you like to visit the CPRE website, and then follow the instructions, count the number of stars you see within the 4 outlying stars of Orion. You can count the 3 in the middle, but I don't think you can count the 4 outside. So you're looking at the stars in this region here, inside this square, effectively formed by these 4 outlying stars. On evenings between the 6th and the 14th of February, that's the survey dates. Go online, log your location and how many stars you see with the unaided eye, and you'll take part in this year's survey. So now we're looking at the events for the month. Okay, so we start off 1st of February. There's a lunar occultation. It is at 01:37 in the morning, and it's also listed in newsletter 282. If you have equipment to view Mars telescopically with CCD cameras or imaging cameras, whatever, then you can probably still image Mars on the 1st of February, when the feature near to Olympus Mons is on the central meridian in the early evening. Okay. Obviously, if you're looking at deep sky objects, which is obviously one of my interests, then moonless evenings between February the 3rd and February the 14th is the best time to have a look at that aspect of deep sky observing, when the moon is out of the way, effectively. It doesn't cause a problem. And that's also on the 6th to the 14th, our CPRE 2021 star count. Okay, so also on the 6th, we see that Saturn and Venus have a conjunction. It is a 0.4 degree separation. It is only 12 degrees from the sun, so effectively I'm saying it's not observable because it's too unsafe to look for it. It's just too close to the sun to observe safely. Last quarter is visible on the 4th. It's in our daytime sky effectively, so if you see the moon in the daytime, that's the best time to have a look at that. There's a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, again with a 0.4 degree separation. Again, it's 11 degrees from the sun at sunrise. They rise 15 minutes before the sun. Be very careful. I'm saying don't. It's far safer not to. But effectively, they might be glimpsed just before the sun rises. But for heaven's sake, if you start to see the sun rising, don't look. New moon is on the 11th. And again, so it's best time to look at fine star clusters, deep sky objects in our winter skies. And on the 12th is the first visibility of the new moon effect, or the present moon rather, 1.1% visible. It sets at 17:52, so you've only got about 40 minutes to catch it before it sets. A bit more interesting and a bit more easier to spot is a thin 4.1% crescent moon visible in the evening twilight after sunset again, up to moon set at about 1907. And as in previous months, we say that on the 15th of February, the variable star Algol, which is a naked eye variable star, has a minima dip in brightness around that date at 2010 is its center time for that. But around the date of February the 15th, you'll notice that demon star Algol is slightly dimmer than it normally is. There's a lunar occultation early evening on the 17th. And this is quite a good thing to look at. It's 1920 UT. It's disappearing on the dark limb, and the details are visible, are mentioned in newsletter 282. On the space science front, then February 18th is the due date effectively for the Mars lander Perseverance to touch down on the Martian surface. We hope that all goes well. And also, on the same evening, the moon is positioned between the Hyades cluster and the Pleiades Seven Sisters cluster, and Mars is just above it as well. So there's something to look at with the naked eye. The first quarter on the 19th. If you have a telescope or binoculars, do have a look at the first quarter moon. There's some stunning shadow details to be seen on the Terminator. It's the best time to look at the moon in detail as the first quarter. It's early evening, it's convenient, and also it gives you some really nice shadow effects. On the 19th, also, the moon is close to the Seven Sisters, Pleiades, and the Hyades star clusters. So, also on the 19th, we have one of these effects where you can start to see things illuminated by the low-angle sun, and in this case, we can see a number of central peaks illuminated within the star crater Aristillus. We've already mentioned on the 21st the lunar glare obscura effect, which is the jeweled handle. This is where sunlight is actually touching the mountain tops around Sinus Iridium, the Bay of Rainbows, and it looks like one of these curved handled knives, effectively with a jeweled handle, if you have a good imagination. February the 22nd, asteroid 29 Amphitrite is at opposition, 8.6 magnitude in Leo. Again, that's mentioned in newsletter 283. February the 23rd is another Claire obscura effect, star-tipped mountain, which is also close to just west of the crater Aristarchus. On the 24th, the moon is close to the Beehive cluster M44. And due to the libration effect we mentioned earlier, on the 25th, we have a rare glimpse of the Mare Orientale on the southwest limb, which is also crossing the Terminator, so it's actually partially lit, so it shows up quite well, apparently, so that's a good time to have a look at that. On the 25th also is our next Zoom meeting, in which we'll be looking at introducing the observers, new to observing, some tips on how to start observing the winter deep sky objects. And these include winter double stars, star clusters, nebulae, and some galaxies as well. Also, earlier in the day, actually on the 25th at 2:40 in the morning, there is an occultation of Gamma Cancri, Cancri, I should say, not Cranky, which is also in newsletter 282. The 27th is a full moon, which is a snow moon. Moonrise is at 1747. And if you really want to be enthusiastic, you can just about see Mercury and Jupiter. They're 3 degrees apart. They are 20 degrees elongation, so it's a little bit more safer to see, but it's still close to sunrise, so be careful. Rising 40 minutes before the sun. As always, be careful. Do not look at the sun directly with any form of equipment, and also the unaided eye. Just a usual warning there. Coming up in March, we have an event to celebrate British Science Week, which will be a Zoom event, I hope. More details to follow on that. And our regular Zoom meeting, if all goes well, will be an update on the Martian landers. So there's a lot to see in the February sky, and please do take the opportunity to go and have a look at these things with telescopes, binoculars, or even just the unaided eye. And we'll see you next month. Stay safe.